Who are some of the worst cops around? Let's find out, starting with number 5, wheeling and dealing. An NYPD officer's glamorous facade crumbled when she was apprehended for allegedly peddling illicit substances while on duty. Grace Rose Baez, a veteran of the force, who once professed her love for her job on social media, faced serious charges alongside Cesar Martinez from Yonkers. Both were accused of conspiring to distribute and actually distributing. Baez's downfall began when she supposedly offered an undercover cop a sample of what she claimed to be top-quality stuff concealed in a Mentos container. Whoops! The subsequent negotiation included a proposed sale of a kilo of some substances that can mistakenly be thought of as nose beers for $25,000. You know, that whole scene with Mia from Pulp Fiction. While allegedly arranging these transactions, Baez continued to perform her duties at an NYPD facility relegated to desk duty. Federal agents said she conducted meetings and negotiated prices for kilogram quantities. The operation finally ended when Baez and Martinez attempted to sell to a federal informant, leading to their arrest. Following Baez's arrest, a search of her shared residence with Martinez uncovered a package of suspected substances that had been tossed out. Baez, who was suspended without pay post-arrest, and Martinez now face the prospect of lengthy prison sentences if found guilty. The charges against Baez not only cast a shadow on her once praised career, but also prompted strong statements from law enforcement officials. U.S. Attorney Damian Williams accused her of flagrantly violating her oath by contributing to the huge illegal substance crisis, while Police Commissioner Edward Cabin expressed deep concern, emphasizing that corruption has no place within the NYPD. Which is all kind of like regular. We condemn this type of statements from the force. When we hear about cops who see the end results of what these types of substances do to families and lives, and then still decide to then engage in selling these substances, it seems quite heartless to us. Why throw away a career you love to hurt people for some more money? Oh, wait, it looks like we answered our own question. Number 4, the crazy ex-cop. A former Tucson police officer named Andrea Middleton got herself a 3-month probation sentence for computer tampering after pleading guilty to 2 counts. The charges stemmed from her misuse of law enforcement databases to harass her ex's new girlfriends. Middleton, who had served 7 years with the Tucson Police Department, resigned after being indicted. Apparently, Middleton had harassed 2 women by accessing their private information, including phone numbers and home addresses, and then blowing up their phones with annoying calls and texts. The focus of these communications was the relationship one of the women had with Middleton's ex-boyfriend. One of the victims reported numerous calls filled with profanity and threats, leading to a restraining order placed against Middleton. During her sentencing in court, Middleton expressed regret for her actions, describing the incident as a learning tool. The judge reduced the charges to misdemeanors and warned Middleton against any future contact with the woman she targeted. The police investigation found Middleton in violation of several law enforcement policies and general orders. Middleton's history with the Tucson Police Department included 3 previous suspensions, one of which resulted in a 40-hour suspension for failing to respond to a fellow officer's call for assistance due to concerns about her then-boyfriend, who was also a police officer. The whole thing goes to show how some cops use law enforcement resources for personal reasons. Thankfully, in this case, harassing phone calls and accessing private information led to legal consequences. Who knows exactly what happened between Middleton and her ex that made her go off the deep end like that? What's really stupid is that she had to know everything would get traced back to her, and she was going to get in trouble for this kind of behavior, especially these days. It wasn't worth your career, Andrea. Number 3, the intentional recording. Former police commander Anthony Doran was accused of filming himself engaged in explicit acts within his office using a department body camera. Because what else would he be using it for? An Arizona police secretary stumbled upon a video on Doran's computer. The nearly 4-minute video reportedly showed Doran, the agency's second in command, in a compromising position with someone who wasn't a police employee doing inappropriate things. What's crazy is that the explicit video was allegedly stored on a flash drive resembling a police radio attached to Doran's department computer. Like Doran was getting cute with storing his career-ending evidence or something? When confronted about the body cam video, Doran supposedly acknowledged the violation, but felt that he didn't deserve to get fired and suggested a 1-week suspension instead. Which reminds us of when little kids try to bargain their way out of a punishment because they're not really sorry. What about instead of going to bed early, I just eat all my peas and I don't play with my favorite toy? The investigation delved further into the computer's hard drive, revealing a folder labeled Fun Times containing over 36 gigabytes of explicit content, images of Doran's junk, and some pretty awful pics that we won't discuss, but you can guess what they were of. Despite the disturbing nature of the discoveries, the personnel inquiry was halted, and the case was referred for criminal investigation. However, no charges were filed, leaving everyone disgusted by the lack of legal repercussions. Doran, who was terminated by the town council, defended himself by claiming that the video and explicit content were stored on a personal flash drive unrelated to work, which is probably the dumbest defense he could have come up with. Yeah, Doran, it's not related to your work because your work is helping people, not violating them in your office. There was a civil complaint filed by Richard Manriquez, a Superior, Arizona resident. Manriquez said that a few years before the body cam incident, officers, including Doran, unlawfully searched his home, roughed him up, and falsely arrested him. These officers, including Doran, were dismissed or suspended from other departments, with their past misconduct serious enough to land them on the Brady list, a list of officers who are known to lie or have done things that would undermine their credibility. The lawsuit named 3 other officers as co-defendants, including Sergeant Joel Christian Ensley, Superior's interim police chief, who was fired for alleged dishonesty in a previous role. Officer Richard H. Mueller, currently with the Globe Police Department, had his peace officer status suspended for 2 years due to an incident involving drunkenness and misuse of his badge. Officer Brian Lawrence, still listed as a member of Superior's police force, resigned from the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office after allegedly lying to a supervisor about time off. Well, that sounds like a great police force, doesn't it? We very much support law enforcement. It was already a hard enough job as it is, and the police deserve our respect. But bad cops like this need to be flushed down the toilet because they give good cops a bad name. Shout out in the comments if you agree. Number 2, more bad recordings. Jeffrey Robillard, a seasoned patrol specialist and officer with the Tacoma Police Department since August 1995, got himself fired after over 35 years on the force. The reason? Violating department policy on unbecoming conduct after he recorded a rather intimate interaction in his patrol car in a parking lot. Robillard's Operations Bureau commander and assistant chief recognized the severity of the situation and recommended the chief fire Robillard, citing a tarnished credibility that rendered him untrustworthy in exercising self-restraint. The chief agreed, feeling that lesser punishment wouldn't be severe enough. And boom, Robillard was fired. Robillard's inappropriate activities were discovered when he voluntarily brought the incident to the attention of Internal Affairs. The investigative and disciplinary records obtained through a public disclosure request painted a picture of Robillard's behavior. And this wasn't his first transgression, as he had received a reprimand for a use of force violation that same year. Sounds like Robillard was going through something, huh? The incident went down during Robillard's final shift, starting at 5 a.m., where he responded to various service calls, including a single car crash. After handling the crash scene, he engaged in a series of calls to a woman with whom he was having an affair. The body camera footage summarized in investigative documents showed the officer switching off his camera and engaging in private conversations. As the details unfolded, it became clear that Robillard used department resources to coordinate the affair, including his department email account and cell phone. In a final admission during his interview with investigators, Robillard acknowledged violating department policy. Be sure to stay tuned right here on this video to find out how this cop was found shoplifting, along with some of the other dumbest shoplifters. Number 1. Self-defense issues. In a tragic incident in Louisville, Kentucky, an armed man lost his life in a confrontation with an undercover police officer during an attempted carjacking. Officers from the Louisville Police Department's fugitive unit were in the area searching for a suspect that was involved in an unrelated incident. They were searching for Rex Wright, who was wanted in connection with some trouble that had gone down a few days before. But as officers were conducting surveillance in an unmarked vehicle, an unrelated guy in his 20s approached them brandishing a firearm, seemingly intending to carjack what was probably the worst car to carjack. One of the undercover officers, a 10-year veteran of the force, drew his service weapon and fired, hitting the man in the chest. Mark Jaggers Jr. was provided immediate medical aid, but later passed away at the University of Louisville Hospital. The original suspect, Rex Wright, later turned himself in without incident. The father of Mark Jaggers Jr. contested the official narrative, claiming his son wasn't attempting a carjacking. Instead, he said his son thought the unmarked police vehicle had been abandoned and wanted to take it for a joyride. According to him, the area is known for abandoned stolen cars, and Jaggers thought this was another one. The Kentucky State Police released body camera footage showing Jaggers approaching the driver's side of the unmarked vehicle and pointing a weapon at the officer when the door opened. The officer, Matt Hayden, a 10-year veteran and a member of the fugitive unit, discharged his weapon in response. Jaggers can be heard on the footage saying, "I wasn't going to rob you," after the officer reported an attempted robbery, which in fairness is a tough sell when there's a weapon in his hand. Attorney Aubrey Williams, representing the Jaggers family, pushed back against the official narrative during a press conference. Williams claimed that Jaggers approached the vehicle behind his home and was confronting what he thought was a suspicious vehicle. He also said that Jaggers never opened the door, but was pushed back to the ground when the officer opened it. The whole ordeal just adds to the pile of questions about the challenges faced by police officers in high-tension situations and having to make split-second decisions. Regardless of why it happened, the incident is no doubt a tragedy, and the loss of life didn't need to happen. So what do you think? Was the use of lethal force justified, or was this another story of a cop with an itchy finger? Tell us what you think in the comments below. Here are a few shoplifters who aren't very good at what they do. Number 10. The business card. Matthew Crowder ran a Facebook page where he posted pictures from what he called raids. These raids were Crowder speak for shoplifting. In his posts, he bragged about pampering his family with the spoils of his conquests. Crowder made it sound like he was slaying dragons for these items when in reality, he was committing petty theft. In 2016, Crowder's poor decision-making came full circle. He walked into another consignment store looking to raid valuable loot. This time, the only treasure that caught his eye was standing behind the counter. The petty thief flirted with the cute cashier. After a moment of conversation, he gave the clerk his business card. Crowder then went back to business as usual and finished his raid. Once the store realized what had happened, they called the police. Thankfully, Crowder did all the work for them. This business-minded burglar left behind a card with his name and address on it. On top of that, he immediately took to Facebook to brag about what he shoplifted. Unfortunately for him, his biggest fans that day were police officers. Officer Dobrik of the Albuquerque Police said it wasn't a surprise because the guys who commit these crimes are usually dumb. He also said to all businesses in the area that if Crowder walks into their store, he's only there to rip them off. Crowder had outstanding warrants for shoplifting in 3 other Albuquerque counties. Number 9. The Magnet Thief. Would-be magnet thief Nicholas Allegretto basically turned himself in when he waltzed into a Cambridge police station to complain about a store owner. Allegretto told police that his image had been used to defame him and cause his family turmoil. His boss saw the picture and fired him on the spot. When the authorities investigated the situation further, Allegretto was promptly arrested. Turns out, he walked into a hardware store and after pretending to shop for a bit, decided to pocket a valuable magnet. He was stopped as he headed towards the exit and workers took the magnet back. Allegretto, though, got away. Angry about the shoplifter, the owner made a wanted poster with Allegretto's face on it and put it up in his store. He also posted it to Facebook and the local papers, which was how Allegretto's friends and family recognized him. Feeling like he had been wronged, the magnet-loving crook thought it would be wise to tell the police. After his arrest, Allegretto was hit with over $1,000 in fines. The shopkeeper couldn't believe Allegretto walked into a police station. He told reporters that Allegretto wasn't the sharpest tool in the box. Number 8. Grandma had enough. In Campbell River, Canada, the local Walmart has a high volume of calls to the authorities. They seem to be a popular target for shoplifters who are willing to do anything to take what they want. One day, somebody's grandma decided she'd had enough. The whole incident was recorded by a man following the criminal. The video starts with the shoplifter ahead of him trying to take his unbagged goods out of the store. When the would-be criminal grabbed his bike, the man with the phone asked him if he was going to pay for his stuff. The shoplifter responded with a "yeah" while he continued towards the door. However, little did he know, a lone vigilante was already on top of him. Like a giant G appeared in the sky, Grandma pushed her cart in front of the thief and scolded him. Before he could react, Granny grabbed his mask and tore it off. Even with his face exposed, he still tried to take the cart. However, seemingly emboldened by Grandma's bravery, the cameraman grabbed the criminal's cart. After a brief struggle, he let go of the carriage and opted for his backpack instead. The thief rode off empty-handed with nothing but shame after Grandma thwarted his pathetic robbery attempt. Number 7. The Purse. In Hillsboro, Oregon, Sarah Michelle Jarvis struggled with a man over her purse. She yanked on it desperately, trying to pull it from his grasp. However, the man's strength was too much for Sarah, and she was clearly fighting a losing battle. It sounds like the opening scene to a Marvel movie, but not everything is always as it seems. In a now viral YouTube video, the altercation kicks off with Sarah and a seemingly random man struggling over a purse at Rite Aid. Sarah had stashed some product in her bag, and a loss and prevention employee caught her red-handed. He chased her into the parking lot and then dragged her back into the store by her purse straps. The situation escalated when Sarah started kicking and punching him. That wasn't a good idea, and he took her to the ground. She flopped and kicked around for a bit before jumping back to her feet and releasing the purse. She tried to leave, but walked right into a waiting officer's arms. The first question that comes to mind is, why didn't she just let the purse go and run? The man was clearly much stronger, and she had no chance of leaving with the bag. While we can only speculate, the reason seems obvious if you listen closely to the beginning of their struggle. Sarah told the loss prevention officer that he shouldn't take people's purses or their Percocets. The want for her drugs could explain why she fought so hard for the bag and her erratic behavior. Even with the video evidence, the charges were dropped and she walked away scot-free. Number 6. TV for Nowhere. John Ray Lomack is a name steeped in infamy at a Target in downtown Seattle. The homeless man was marked as a prolific shoplifter. He gained this title by hitting the same store over 20 times and getting away with around $6,000 worth of products. In the previous incidents, he even hurt some employees while escaping with his ill-gotten gains. This prompted Target to ban him from the store and instructed employees to call the police if he showed his face. This didn't stop this confident criminal as he walked in again with a mask covering his face. He was still recognized though, and the cops were called as he was obviously scoping out a 70-inch TV. Lomack headed straight for the exit with the oversized TV on his cart, but security met him at the door. They didn't fight with him, but they did grab the TV and stopped him from pulling it outside. What ensued was a struggle straight out of a late-night comedy sketch. Lomack pulled the TV from different angles while the employees steadily pulled it back. He eventually made it outside and after a short rest, dragged his prize down the street. Lomack's victory was short-lived as the employees found 2 cops and pointed them in his direction. When confronted by the officers, the homeless man put up a struggle but was apprehended and taken to jail. Despite an overwhelming record of 18 felony convictions, the judge released Lomack with no consequences. Number 5. Marshall's Robber. In an arrest that looked more like a WWE match, Franklin Nunez fought off 2 officers as he desperately tried to escape from the marshals he chose to rob. The officers arrived on the scene to confront Nunez after employees called 911. Before a recent policy change, employees had to wait 30 minutes after witnessing a shoplifting attempt to call 911. You could argue that policy was in place to avoid in-store confrontation. After all, security cameras probably caught them in the act anyway. Nonetheless, the policy got a facelift and employees could call 911 on a shoplifting attempt in progress. Some of the patrons recorded Nunez's handicap match with police and posted it to many social media sites. In the video, you can see Nunez stiff-arm one officer while fending off another. They eventually bring him down where the struggle continues. Some sources report that Nunez appeared to be going for the officer's weapon in the video, although there's no confirmation. Nunez rises up like the Undertaker and shakes off both officers as he runs out the door. This seemingly superhuman shoplifter was only caught after 10 more officers showed up. Number 4. New York Shoplifting King. Isaac Rodriguez found out how heavy the proverbial crown is after becoming the shoplifting king of New York. Like a reverse Robin Hood, surrounded by concrete and only taking for himself, Rodriguez went on a roll during his spree. He broke New York's record for most retail theft arrests with a whopping 46 and was arrested 57 times total in 2021. Those arrests included several other charges, including some violent ones. However, Rodriguez kept getting thrown back on the street. The police commissioner blamed new bail reform laws for the spike in crime. The items the klepto king chose to steal were the weirdest part. He lifted random things like soap, baby formula, and lingerie. Rodriguez often came to the same store several times in one day. Walgreens alone felt the wrath of the king 37 times in 1 year. How he carried out his crimes was pretty interesting. Rodriguez had no elaborate plan or scheme to fall back on. Instead, he just walked into a store and began filling a bag up. When it was full, the King of Thieves walked on out like he owned the place. The king finally landed in jail when a judge set his bail at $15,000. Good luck stealing and reselling enough body lotion to pay that off. Number 3. Grand Theft Gucci. Ekaterina Zarkova, California resident, loved luxury so much that she was arrested twice for stealing a ridiculous amount of designer goods. Zarkova's scheme was relatively simple. She walked into a TJ Maxx or Nordstrom in Orange County. Zarkova whipped out empty shopping bags and filled them up when no one was looking. She kept this up for over a month without any real resistance and made off with thousands worth of designer products. She might have kept going unchecked if the investigator that witnessed her crimes wasn't in the right place at the right time. Zarkova wasn't just stealing the products to feel like an heiress with a large inheritance. Her plans were more entrepreneurial in nature. She took all her stolen items and tried to sell them on an online consignment store. If she hadn't been caught, she could have made a lot of money doing so. Zarkova stole over $300,000 worth of designer products from TJ Maxx and Nordstrom in the short month she was operating. Her spree was ended by an investigator who caught her red-handed and arrested her. Apparently, this wasn't Zarkova's first dance with the law. She had been arrested in March for a similar crime. In that instance, she was caught with over $950 in products and a tool to remove tags from items. She was released on a $20,000 bail and ordered to appear in court for her arraignment. When Zarkova didn't show for her first court date, a judge issued a warrant for her arrest. The authorities also got a warrant for her car and apartment where they found her secret stash of products. This prompted another arrest and a much steeper bail set at $320,000. Zarkova was charged with 4 felony counts of grand theft, 7 misdemeanor counts of petty theft, and 1 felony count of receiving stolen property. If convicted on all charges, she could get 9 years in prison. The Orange County District Attorney, Todd Spitzer, seemed fired up by the situation and put out a stern warning to any would-be criminals. He expressed that these crimes were not victimless. If anyone commits these acts under his watch, they will be arrested and prosecuted. Number 2. Integrity Control Officer. NYPD Sergeant Eva Pena must have thought she was above the law. On an average September night in 2019, Pena strolled into a Macy's department store and decided the brand name clothing she wanted was too expensive to pay for. Instead of putting it back on the rack, CCTV footage captured her removing the price tags and stuffing the clothing in her purse. Her haul? 6 different items from Guess and Tommy Hilfiger, totaling $360. Here's the kicker. As a sergeant in the NYPD, Pena made just over $100,000 per year overseeing the Bronx Housing Authority. According to the New York Post, her role involved integrity control officer, and she'd recommend punishments for those beneath her who committed small infractions. She also posed for pictures with Commissioner James O'Neill at a recent police event. Did she really think she was above the law, or did she have some kind of leverage on O'Neill? Leverage enough to warrant petty theft she clearly could have afforded? Loss prevention officers at Macy's caught Pena red-handed on CCTV. They detained her in a security office and called the police. About an hour later, Pena was suspended from her role with the NYPD. The following Friday, Pena drove herself to court in a white Mercedes-Benz with a $1,000 Louis Vuitton in hand. Perhaps flaunting her wealth could actually help her case? If people see how well off she is, maybe they'd question why she'd shoplift in the first place. Either way, she walked into the courtroom with a wide smile, stood by her lawyer's side, and pleaded not guilty. Number 1. San Fran Shoplifting Queen. In just 13 months, Aziza Graves was arrested and charged after shoplifting from Target 120 times, making off with over $40,000 worth of products during her crime spree. She used the self-checkout lane, paid between 1 cent and $1, then left before the sale was completed. Police finally caught up to her in November of 2021, but a judge released her on bail. The judge requested she wear an ankle bracelet, but the shoplifting queen of San Francisco had other ideas. She never wore the ankle bracelet and went right back to stealing. Thankfully, she didn't get far. Police caught her in the act a month later. This time, they insisted that Aziza be held without bail. Clearly, she has no intentions of being an upstanding citizen. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you'd rather have. Free McDonald's for life or free Chick-fil-A for life.